I think it's the greatest news in the world. We'd been married 5 years, had a little trouble having a baby, went to a fertility doctor, and suddenly, boom, a little girl, and the first little girl in our family in almost 100 years.
Is it just your daughter?
Daughter and two sons. Got to watch out, because once it starts, we had another one 15 months later. So wait 5 years, and then boom, 15 months later, Irish twins, they call it.
Wow. So the boys are twins?
Well, they're twins only in the sense they're pretty close together. Irish twins, like probably should have waited longer, but hey. And then we have another one younger than that, but he's 4 or 5 years younger.
Do you remember what it was like around that time in the delivery room and that whole hospital experience?
Not only do I remember, we kind of filmed it. We had a new video camera like every dad gets to film the little one. We were scared to death, first of all, make sure we get to the hospital in time, because first pregnancy was a little bit high risk, so we wanted to make sure everything was fine. And the baby was born in DC, so at the DC Hospital for Women, and fortunately everything turned out all right. But the main thing is make sure your wife's happy, because what's the phrase, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Do you remember the first time you had to watch either your daughter alone or all three of the kids by yourself?
Well, first of all, I wasn't used to handling babies. I thought they might break or something, so I had to learn about that. But then you realize, hey, they're a lot tougher than you think. But the scary part is when you're managing 2 or 3 at one time, because you go from one-on-one to zone defense, and that's a lot tougher. Especially when they're the wiggly age, 2, 3, 4, they get in a lot of trouble in a hurry. We tried to cover up, for example, the electric sockets and anything like that, so they wouldn't stick anything in there. And any drawer can be a problem because they can pull it all the way out. But somehow we got through it, and even tougher, got through the teenage years. But it's all good. It's the greatest blessing anybody can have, is to have kids.
And what makes you the proudest about your children?
I think I'm proudest when people start recognizing me, not for who I am, but I'm Mary's dad or Jamie's dad or Hayes' dad, because they're now 27, 26, 21. So they're people in their own right, and I'm proud to be their dad.
What is the thing that your children do like you that surprises you? Good or indifferent?
Well, it's kind of scary how much we are alike. Like, I'm wearing my son's shirt right now. I didn't have any shirt this cool, so I asked him this morning at breakfast, I said, got any dark colored shirt for me? Sure, Dad, no problem. And then it kind of fits, so it's amazing. Have similar interests, but in a way they're very different, and that's a great blessing too, because you don't want a Xerox copy. You want a new and better thing. It's proof of evolution, proof of God's love, I think.
You may recall the show Kids Say the Darndest Things. Have you had a moment with your kids where they dished you up a dose of truth?
Well, there are a couple of things that stand out. One was my oldest son wanted to shoot my brother, his uncle, with a water pistol. And I wanted to discourage him but not be too tough on him. So I said, isn't it a little cold outside to shoot him with a water pistol? And he thought for a minute and said, well, Dad, how about if we put hot water in the gun? And I thought, whoa, that kid's thinking right there. Another time, my younger son, we were at a museum with poisonous snakes, and he loved that. And the label on the snake cage said, this snake can kill 240 mice with one bite. And my son saw that and he said, well, Dad, how could you fit 240 mice inside that little snake's mouth? It wouldn't work. So I love little insights like that. And my wife pointed out one the other day, because we used to say, like Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond. And one time we're on a long car trip, and my son said, well, I think we're in beyond now, wherever that is. So just those little turns of phrase, they stick with you forever.
What's something that you wish you would have known before you became a father?
I guess I wish I wouldn't known how great it is, and might have wanted to do it earlier, because really didn't get married till I was 30, and the kids were born when we were 35. So it's really the greatest thing in the world, and we got to keep life going. It's kind of ironic that some of the better off, more prosperous nations actually have fewer kids, and some of the nations that are desperately poor have more kids. So you kind of wonder, this is a better place to bring kids into the world. Why don't we have more of them? But the way it works out is the nations in which you wonder how a kid can even survive, that's where they have the most kids. Well, my wife is a pretty strong-willed lady. And one time growing up, one of her teachers called her stubborn as a mule. And I think sometimes that still applies, because I learned early on in the marriage, the two most popular words you can say are yes, dear. And I've gotten pretty good at that. But you always have differences in upbringing. If I'd had my way, I probably would have gotten rid of the TV entirely. Because in general, I think that's a waste of time and not nearly as good as reading books or playing outside. But my wife is more of a TV person. And it worked out pretty well that way, because my kids are tuned into popular culture and they know what's going on. And that's probably a better, more natural way to grow up than maybe the way I did, which was pretty strict and no TV and stuff like that. Oh, the best thing about Father's Day is just getting together. Hope the kids are all in town, because now mine are scattered in 3 different towns. And when they come back together, that's special. So whatever day on the calendar it is, what matters is when we're together. I think the most natural thing is just to hang out at home so that everybody's doing what they want to do. You're not necessarily all at the same table eating dinner, although that's always a great thing to do. But you're in the house together, maybe in adjoining rooms, maybe in the same room, but you're doing what each of you likes doing. I like to pick on the banjo a little bit. My kids sometimes like to watch TV or watch a movie or play a game. My wife and one of the kids is really big on crossword puzzles and other like jigsaw puzzles, so just things like that. So to me, quality time is just when you're together, not really focusing on how precious each second and each minute really is.
What do you think the key to raising kids is?
At first I was going to say unconditional love, and I think that comes with any parent, because there's just nobody as special as your own child. But I think really the key is earned success, so that they have the opportunity to venture out in the world on their own and earn whatever it is on their own. So it's not a gift, it's not a hand-me-down, it's something they achieved on their own without parental intervention. So to me, that's really what matters, because the main thing you need to give a child is self-confidence and the ability to do it on their own, because parents aren't going to be around all the time, and they got to be able to function without us.
What do you want your legacy to be with your children?
I hope that they'll always love me and think that, when I had a tough call to make, that ended up making the right call. Because it's not always easy. I remember, when young kids, they want the car keys all the time, and you think, well, maybe that's not a good idea. Because young kids have a tendency to drive too fast, take too many risks. And I'm thankful for Uber and Lyft and things like that, because that takes some of the danger out of growing up as a teenager.
How do you maintain your work-life balance while still being a great husband and a great dad?
Well, I wouldn't put myself in the great category. That's for others to say, not me. I think they grew up understanding that I was gone a lot to Washington, because the family's always been here in Tennessee. They put up with that, and sometimes it helps when I'm gone, because I can be a little intense sometimes. And I think sometimes it's nice for everybody to have a break. And maybe Dad isn't there 24/7. But I'm usually back always on the weekends, and always, with telephone and FaceTime and things like that. It's kind of amazing how you can stay in touch now. When I grew up, it was writing letters, and that's so old-fashioned now, hardly anybody does it anymore. Just the thought of putting a stamp on something alienates people, because that's nearly 50 cents a pop right there. And then so many people are not used to expressing themselves on the page. But that still, to me, is a good way to do it, because once it's written down, somehow for me it's more real. Spoken words can come and go in one ear, out the other. But boy, if it's written on a page, I think that's powerful.
What type of influences did you have growing up?
My father was a very powerful presence. He had been governor of Tennessee, so that's kind of a big deal when everybody calls your father governor and pays him a lot of respect. Now, that was before I was born, so I missed the governor's mansion and all that. And he died when I was 14, so I was pretty young. But he was much older when he married. He was 25 years older than my mom. So I didn't realize at the time, sometimes people would compliment him on his nice grandkids, and that was us, his kids. But we didn't know anything different, so we just got used to it. But it's a powerful influence. He is a strong-willed person, and that leaves its mark.
What's your favorite part about being a dad?
I think you just wake up in the morning happy and worried at the same time because all you want is good things for your kids. And that gives you a purpose in life, which is the most important thing you can have. But it also gives you concerns too, because there are a lot of dangers out there in the world, and you can't focus on it too much, especially when they're out late at night and you kind of wonder where they are, when they're coming in, and should you have had a curfew or something like that. But fortunately, knock on wood, all our kids have been safe all the way along, so all my misplaced worries ended up being for naught. But it's just part of being a parent to worry. You've got to be concerned because there's somebody on this earth more important than you are, and that's your kids. My name is Jim Cooper, and I have the best job in the world. I'm a dad.